Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to the Traffic Board public hearing on December 1st regarding the Somerville Traffic Commission July 15, 2021 actions making regulatory changes for the College Avenue Mobility Improvement Project. Kate, would you please read the virtual meeting information?
Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Traffic Board will be conducted via remote participation. An audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings will be posted as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website.
Thanks, Kate. Let's begin with a roll call to establish quorum. Kate, would you please call the roll?
The Chair of the Traffic Board.
Ariel White, present.
The Mayor's representative to the Traffic Board.
Present.
The City Council's representative to the Traffic Board.
Present.
All three members in attendance, we have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. The first and only agenda item is to open the meeting to the public hearing. If the Traffic Board receives a petition relative to a rule or regulation approved by the Traffic Commission, the Traffic Board will host a public hearing and determine by majority vote whether to avoid or affirm the adoption, alteration, or repeal of the rule or regulation. The Traffic Board received an appeal describing the following. We, the undersigned registered voters of the City of Somerville, hereby petition the Somerville Traffic Board to conduct a public hearing regarding the Somerville Traffic Commission July 15, 2021 actions making regulatory changes for the College Ave Mobility Improvements Project, agenda items 3 and 4. There was 1, poor notice of the meeting. 2, an illicit requirement for members of the public to register in advance. 3, deceptive wording of the regulatory proposals. 4, incomplete and misleading presentation of the data. 5, technical difficulties with key staff participation. 6, failure to take roll call for a quorum. And 7, failure to take actions and record actions by roll call vote. We believe diverse people with and without disabilities, including area residents, customers, clients, business owners, business and nonprofit managers, and property owners, as well as Somerville's general welfare, will be harmed by the Commission's actions. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, public hearings will be conducted virtually. Here are the rules and regulations to be used during a virtual public hearing. All attendees will be muted at the beginning of the public hearing. Only one person will be allowed to speak at any given time. The chair will take speakers off mute individually when they are called on. Members of the public may request to provide testimony by raising their hand using the raise hand function in the video conferencing platform. The chair and/or city staff will share instructions on how to use the raise hand function at the beginning of the hearing and periodically throughout the meeting. The chair will then call on members of the public in the order that they appear. Members of the public, when speaking, are requested to state for the record their name, address, and the name of any organization they represent, if applicable. Members of the public are requested to speak directly and clearly due to the fact that these proceedings are being recorded. Statements from the public are limited to 2 minutes each. The chair reserves the right to interrupt comments that extend beyond 2 minutes in order to afford everyone an opportunity to provide testimony. Project proponents will be asked to provide a presentation with background information to inform the Traffic Board and members of the public. After all speakers in the queue have completed their testimony, the chair will ask whether there are any members of the public who have not yet provided testimony who wish to. Written testimony can be sent by email to transportation@somervillema.gov or by mail to Mobility Division, Attention Hearing, 93 Highland Avenue, Somerville, Mass. 02143. Written testimony must be received by 4 p.m. of the day of the public hearing. All public and written comments received will be included in the board's consideration. The board will determine by majority vote whether to avoid or affirm the adoption, alteration, or repeal of the rule or regulation. We will first begin with a brief presentation from the project proponents, in this case, the City of Somerville. After the presentation, we will open it up to clarifying questions from the board and then to public testimony. I'll turn it over to the city. Justin Schreiber, I believe you're presenting.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me okay? My name is Justin Schreiber. I serve the city as a transportation planner in the mobility division of the planning department. And tonight I'll provide you with a brief summary of the proposal that was approved by the Traffic Commission at their July 15th meeting and subsequently reaffirmed and ratified at their November 18th meeting regarding the College Avenue Mobility Improvements Project. So College Avenue from Powderhorse Circle to Davis Square is being resurfaced this year as a part of the city's pavement and sidewalk management program. This work began last spring. Currently, more than 2/3 of the space on College Avenue is dedicated primarily to moving or storing motor vehicles. The city of Somerville has many neighborhood climate and transportation plans that all call on the city to rebalance auto-dominated streets, reduce vehicle miles traveled, and prioritize walking, biking, and transit access. And by constructing multimodal improvements on College Ave, it makes it easier for residents and visitors to walk, bike, or take transit more safely and comfortably, while also maintaining access for people driving. This project also fulfills the Complete Streets Ordinance, which calls on the city to approach every project as an opportunity to enhance facilities for bicycle, pedestrian, and transit facilities. It also requires the city to propose mitigation measures for any adverse impacts that could happen with those projects. A little bit about transportation on College Ave. Nearly 75% of the people entering Davis Square in the morning peak are walking, biking, or riding the bus. And a little more than 50% of people entering Powderhorse Circle in the evening are walking, biking, or riding the bus. Nearby residents have travel habits that include about a little less than half taking public transit to work, 40% walking or biking to work, and about a third driving alone or carpooling to work. College Ave is also one of, if not the most frequent transit routes in the city. The 3 routes on College Ave serve in total over 7,000 passengers on those routes in their entirety. Buses come about every 5 minutes in the morning peak and about every 6 minutes in the evening peak. According to street intercept surveys that the city completed both on College and Holland, about 3/4 of folks that were surveyed did not drive, a little more than half walked. Just under 90% of those that did drove found parking within 5 minutes, and about half of those that identified as driving said that they would prefer ideally not to drive if it was safer and more comfortable. So in summary, the existing street design really does not reflect the multimodal nature of transportation on College Ave. Quick background on the community process for this project. There were 3 public meetings. There was local flyering of homes, businesses, and bus stops in advance of those meetings. For the final meeting, there were reverse 311 calls, or what's known as Somerville City alerts, to nearby residents by text, email, or phone, depending on their preferences. There was also an online public input map, which allowed people to make suggestions for improvements on both College and Holland Ave. There was a street design survey with a little over 250 responses, collection of parking data and analysis, the street intercept surveys that I just mentioned briefly, as well as numerous sort of individual and group meetings with business owners, city advisory committees, residents, and commercial property owners. To briefly summarize the public input we heard a lot of concerns about stressful and unsafe crosswalks. We heard concerns about speeding, particularly heading into Davis Square, concerns about MBTA buses being stuck in traffic queues, concerns about the impacts of reducing curbside parking, and concern about the lack of dedicated spaces for people biking. We also heard a number of requests, including requests to slow down people driving, to make it safer and easier to cross College Ave in more places, to improve the visibility for people using all modes of transportation near intersections, to provide protected bike facilities, to mitigate impacts from curbside parking changes, and to prioritize more short-term parking regulations, including parking meters, pickup and drop-off zones, and commercial loading zones, and also to help get MBTA buses out of traffic. This slide is a schematic overview of the design, and it includes the different types of facilities proposed and where they're proposed to be provided. So it shows where bus and bike lanes were proposed, where protected bike lane segments proposed, where parking is proposed to remain, as well as where safety and crossing improvements were proposed. It also highlights some of the traffic calming elements of the project, including new crosswalks, pedestrian refuge islands, curb extensions, raised speed humps for traffic calming, and raised crosswalks. This next slide summarizes the parking changes that were proposed on College Ave, as well as the origin of those changes, including the number of spaces proposed to be added or removed, and the reasoning behind that, including for bus and bike lanes, for consolidated bus stops, for safety improvements and enhanced bus stops, and where those were located. So shown in red are spaces that were proposed to be resurfaced for other improvements along the curb. And then shown in green is spaces that were to remain, including a couple additional spaces that were added due to bus stops being consolidated on the corridor. This next slide shows changes that were proposed just off of College Ave as a parking mitigation strategy designed to prioritize shorter term regulations near businesses to increase turnover, to effectively increase the capacity of spaces. They included 22 new parking meter spaces, new loading zones, removing some peak hour restrictions at some meters and loading zones. Those are shown in the dotted lines on Highland Ave. It also displays where existing accessible parking spaces are in the area, as well as the new accessible parking space that was proposed in front of the West Branch Library. A quick note on the July 15th meeting. The meeting was posted to the city calendar by the parking department on July 1st. The meeting agenda was posted by the parking department on July 8th, consistent with what is typical for the traffic commission to post agendas 1 week in advance of the meeting. Pre-registration was not required for meeting attendees. A link was included in the posting that could be used to join the meeting at any time, and join by web or telephone options are both available. Mobility presented the proposal in full to the Traffic Commission at the July 15th meeting. However, the agenda items were inadvertently approved without a roll call vote establishing quorum at the meeting and roll call votes for each item. At the November 18th, 2021 meeting, the Traffic Commission reaffirmed and ratified their approval of all items on the July 15th agenda with a roll call vote, allowing this appeal to proceed to the Traffic Board. This next slide summarizes, just as was summarized at the Traffic Commission, agenda item number 3, pointing out the specific sub-agenda items. This was a way to visually represent what was written on the meeting agenda. So each sub-item and the parking regulations that were proposed are included here. And this addresses agenda item number 3. And this slide is addressing agenda item number 4, including references to the specific sub-items and changes that were proposed in the surrounding streets just off of College Ave. And that is the end of this presentation. Happy to answer any clarifying questions or bring up any of these diagrams as well.
Thank you, Justin. Before we open it up to public testimony, do any board members wish to ask any clarifying questions?
Yeah, do you just have like a short addition and subtraction of like the number of parking spaces being removed versus added?
Yes, the net total was 33 spaces, netting out the 4 that were added. So 35 were proposed for removal, and then the 4 proposed for added. I'm sorry, 31 is the net.
And then for the new metered spots, are they going to allow parking by permit as well?
When the meters are not in effect, so the meters are just in effect from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So during that time, you do need to pay the meter, but they're not regulated when the meters are not in effect.
I think that is mainly my questions there.
Okay. If there are no more questions, we will now open it up to public testimony. Kate will share the instructions to raise your hand in this Zoom platform.
Thank you, Era. To participate To participate and provide testimony, you can select the raise hand function. You can find this either by pressing your reactions button in your toolbar, and a pop-up will appear and you can select raise hand. You might also find it directly in your toolbar, and in some Zoom versions, it's through your participants window. We will call on you when it's your turn and unmute your microphone. We will share the queue of raised hands so that everyone in their Zoom session has an idea of who is up next. And if you're joining today by phone, to raise your hand, you can press *9. If you have any difficulties whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, Kate White, either by email at kwhite@somervillema.gov or by phone at 617-366-7293.
Thank you, Kate. Prior to this public hearing, the board received 33 pieces of written testimony. Each board member has reviewed these comments and we will include them in our consideration. Moving on to public testimony. As a reminder for public testimony, you just heard that members of the public may request to provide testimony by raising their hand using their raise hand function in the video conferencing platform. Members of the public, when speaking, are requested to state for the record their name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, if applicable. Members of the public are requested to speak directly and clearly due to the fact these proceedings are being recorded. As a reminder, statements from the public are limited to 2 minutes each. The chair reserves the right to interrupt comments that extend beyond 2 minutes in order to afford everyone an opportunity to provide testimony. And as you can see, everyone should see a timer on the screen, which will time the 2 minutes. And with that, I think we're ready to go. We will start. I see a few attendees have raised hands. So Kate, could you announce the first person's name and the following person's name, and then unmute the first speaker?
Yes, first we have John Solari, and following John, we have Tom LaMar.
Okay, John, I think you should be
unmuted.
Hi, thank you guys so much for your time. My name is John Solari. I live at 9 Forster Street in Somerville. I am asking that you wait to make a decision about the removal of parking along College Ave until the city's parking study is complete this coming June and proper notice is given to the surrounding community. I am deeply disturbed that it's necessary to have this meeting at all. This is a direct result of the city's failure at its most basic obligation, notifying property owners and stakeholders of a plan that would directly harm their businesses and livelihoods. During this process, the city participated in deceitful tactics and used inadequate and flawed data to make its decision. I manage 14 different addresses along Statue Park, College Avenue, and all the way down to Kidder Ave. Not one of my tenants, the property owners themselves, or our management office was approached by the city. We luckily heard of the plan just before the last community meeting. A neighbor reached out. After pointing out these inequities to the traffic office, we were offered meetings with Brad Rawson. We took time to do our own data collection. During our final meeting with Brad and Justin, we pointed out that our data, which had a sample size 3 times the city's, directly contradicted their narrative. Brad promised another meeting and admitted that their data, taken over a 2-week period during a beautiful spring month prior to COVID, was incomplete and flawed. Those were his words, incomplete and flawed. There was never another meeting. Instead, they broke the project in half, submitted it to the Traffic Commission under the cover of COVID, never once reaching out to us again. The city is spending over $500,000 on a parking study that will be completed this coming June. Please wait for those findings and before those findings are released and make an informed decision. Removing parking along College Ave will destroy already struggling businesses. I hope you will look past the bike lane and consider the whole Davis Square community you are harming. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John. Kate, could you read the next 2 people, please?
Yes, we have Tom LaMar next, and then after that, Kenneth Eugene Carlson.
Okay. Please unmute, Tom.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, good evening, members of the traffic board. My name is Tom LaMar. My address is 17 Cross Street, number 3. And I also serve as chair of the Somerville Bicycle Advisory Committee. I would like to first convey a resolution from the Bicycle Advisory Committee and offer more specific comments on my own behalf. First, I would like to inform the board that the Bicycle Advisory Committee has been strongly supportive of this project. For example, in September, the Bicycle Advisory Committee passed a resolution stating that we reiterate our support for the proposed College Ave project, which we believe will substantially improve safety and mobility. Beyond that, I'll offer more specific comments on my own behalf. I'd like to note that the bus lanes, the 24/7 bus lanes included in this project are excellent for achieving better compliance for motorists, especially since Davis is known for being especially busy and popular all day, and the people biking will rely on the bus bike lane being accessible at all times of day. I'd also like to thank city staff for including a continuous bike lane in the northbound direction, offering a safe connection from Davis Square as far north as the recently improved Powder House Circle. While I wish this project included more safety improvement than it currently does, overall, I'm strongly supportive, and I thank city staff for bringing it this far, and the commission and board for considering this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Kate, would you read the next 2 speakers' names, please?
Yes, next we have Kenneth Eugene Carlson, and following Kenneth, we have Jack Connolly.
Okay, would you unmute Kenneth, please?
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is Ken Carlson. I live in Ward 2, Beacon Street in Somerville, and I am a member of the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets. My comments are just—
I'm sorry, Ken, sorry. Kate, would you start the timer, please?
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies, yes.
Yeah, I noticed it wasn't going. My name is Ken Carlson. I live on Beacon Street in Somerville, and I'm a member of the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets. My comments tonight are as an individual Somerville resident. Davis Square really should be the jewel of Somerville in terms of the people who can access Davis Square with respect to businesses. There are many businesses in other locations of interest. There are numerous pedestrians and people who bicycle and transit who move through the square. We have a major university. It is a place that should be a safe and equitable destination for people who are moving through the square. But presently, it is a fairly dangerous place to be a pedestrian or a bicyclist. There's really very little in the way of bicycle facilities. There's a lot of cut-through traffic of people driving through Davis Square, a fair amount of speeding, and it is a place that is not comfortable to move by biking or walking. The changes that are proposed to create safer facilities, better crosswalks, better transit access, and bike lanes, even though not all that we want, is a great improvement for this square. So we look forward to seeing these changes implemented. I think the sooner they can be implemented, the better. More people will be protected, and they can continue to support the businesses by foot, by bike, by bus, and with the parking mitigation that's being proposed by car. Those are my comments, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ken. Kate, would you please read the names of the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Jack Connolly. Following Jack Connolly, we have Zach Rosenberg.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Jack?
Jack, you should be unmuted. Can
I believe, are we okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great, thank you. My concern is that there was no mention made at the beginning of the meeting that this was an appeal of that July 15th meeting. Maybe a technicality, but that was not posted on the notice, nor was it mentioned, or was that read into the record tonight as far as the public notice goes. I think rather than have a technical problem later. Maybe you want to reconsider that. I had asked that that be a point of order and that my time to comments not be considered for the 2 minutes. Nonetheless, I see the timer is going and I'm not going to be given as much of an opportunity as other speakers. My point is that the notice was not disseminated well. Many of us in College Ave are easily approachable. I spent 30 years as an elected official, not so much as an email or a phone call to notify me of any of this that was happening until members of the nearby community let us know. The misrepresentation of the data, passerby intercept means people being interviewed on the street. And as Mr. Solari mentioned, not exactly hard and fast data that was collected by well-known traffic study methods. The economic disadvantage that's being imposed on businesses on College Ave to the residents of Champlain, many elderly and in need of services, PT, OT, respiratory services, that nursing services are going to be jeopardized in their ability to find parking. Every business in Davis Square will mention how difficult parking is. It's going to be a major impasse to individuals who are seeking Davis Square nights, weekends, especially in the wintertime. And chances are, if they're not able to park fairly close to the square, and especially business evening hours, they'll continue on depriving businesses of customers, especially coming out of COVID. I see that the time has expired, but I've sent plenty of information along. I know other people have submitted testimony in writing as well. I would suggest, Madam Chair, that you consider opening the record for another week for additional information that people may want to provide in writing to the traffic board.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Kate, would you read the next 2 names, please?
Next, we have Zach Rosenberg, and following Zach, we have John Baptiste.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Zach?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Zach Rosenberg. I'm a resident. I live at 5 Cameron Ave. I also serve as chair of the Pedestrian and Transit Advisory Committee, but tonight I'm speaking for myself. In general, I'm very supportive of this project. I think the mobility department has worked diligently and quickly, especially after after Dr. Zalman was killed walking along College Ave. Mobility has worked to incorporate much needed safety features along this section. I also saw and attended some of the early public meetings. I think they were adequate and well done. I think this project also meets many of the goals that we have as a city have already outlined in Summer Vision 2040 and the Vision Zero Action Plan. Things like increasing transportation equity with a focus on bus users and bike riders, prioritizing vulnerable road users, reducing vehicle miles traveled, and minimizing overall space dedicated to personal vehicles in Somerville. So this project includes a lot of safety improvements. I'm really happy to see the city move forward and implement these. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers' names?
Yes, next we have John Baptiste, and following Al, we have Ariel White.
Okay, great. And why don't you reset the timer and unmute Al, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my name's John Baptiste. I'm not a resident of Somerville, but I work at Apartment Rental Experts, which is located at 18 College Avenue, right in the heart of Davis Square. I understand what you guys are trying to do, but you do have to take into consideration that there are businesses here that rely on there being available parking. A requirement to work here is you have to have a car because you have to, as a real estate agent, you have to travel throughout the city. So I need at least 1 parking spot for every agent that works here. And then we need parking for our customers who need to be able to come and go as they please as well. This plan doesn't allow for that. It only allows for bike riders to move more freely through the square. And I've been sitting here at 18 College Avenue all day today. And I asked the agents, I said, let's count how many bikes go by. It's all cars. So I get it that you guys feel strongly about your bikes and your bike riding and your bike enthusiasts, but there are businesses that are going to lose a ton of business over this. And maybe you don't care, but you should. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Al. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Next, we have Ariel White. Following Ariel, we have Seth Hurwitz.
Thank you. Please unmute Ariel. Ariel, we can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great.
now.
Thanks very much. My name's Ariel White. I live at 11 Hinckley Street, and I followed the planning process for these changes pretty closely last year. And although they didn't go as far as I would have liked to see, I have been looking forward to seeing them implemented. I've been watching the construction progress through the window of the 89 bus as we sit in traffic on College Ave in the mornings. And so I've been looking forward to a time when maybe someday we spend a little bit less time in traffic on College Ave in the mornings. And I'm really hoping that you won't roll back any of the planned updates. These are fairly small changes to the street in order to try to make it a little bit safer for people to get around. And they're being implemented, as one of the prior speakers noted, in the wake of a person having been killed along this stretch. So if that doesn't make the case for just how pressing they are, I'm really not sure what would. But I also think that in general, they're an important step towards making it possible for everyone to get around Somerville safely and comfortably, regardless of their travel mode, their age, their physical abilities. Because when I think about building a Somerville that's friendly for, for families, for people aging in place, for people with disabilities, I think about a Somerville that needs to make exactly the kinds of changes that are happening here and probably more. I mean, I think about making street crossings shorter, having pedestrian refuges, having traffic calming, just like this plan does, right? So that people can safely cross the street, even if they're not able to do that thing you see people doing now on College Ave, where they kind of break into a nervous run halfway across because there's a car suddenly speeding at them. I think also about making the bus work for the many people that I see riding it with mobility aids like canes or with strollers. And so that means making it not just so that the bus runs as quickly and as efficiently as possible down College, but also that it's actually able to get to the curb to let people off safely, which is frequently not the situation now. So I'm hopeful that you'll proceed to with these changes, which I think stand to make a lot of people safer and more comfortable as they move to and from Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Seth Hurwitz. Following Seth Hurwitz, we have Kim.
Okay, would you please unmute Seth?
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I don't have too much to add besides what Zach and I believe was that Ariel that spoke previously, what they've shared. I think Zach did a really nice job mentioning how these changes reflect our longstanding goals for the city as far as making it safer for pedestrians, making our city more sustainable, and encouraging alternative modes of transportation. I really support any move really that the city does to restrict parking and encourage other modes of transportation so that more users of the streetscape can be safe and get around without having to rely on a car. And I understand that this may be an inconvenience for some businesses, but for many years now, we've prioritized car-centric streetscapes. And I think that it's acceptable to ask businesses to make some shifts to figure out how they can continue going about their work while also servicing people who use the bus, who have to walk, who ride bicycles, or just have other means of transportation other than cars. Thank you again for the outreach that you've done on this project, as well as on the other streetscape projects. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, our next speaker is Kim. Following Kim is Fernanda M.
Thank you. Please unmute Kim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hi. I'm actually Allie. I'm here with my mom, Kim, and we're joining together. I am a resident of Somerville for 24 years. I'm 24 years old. I belong to Somerville Community Baptist Church, which is on 31 College Ave, and I am an employee of Kingdom Rock Children's Village, which is a preschool that's been open for 5 years. That's how long I've worked there. That is behind Somerville Community Baptist Church on 31 College Ave. Our concern is that our church is regularly used on Sundays and for weddings and funerals. We are concerned for hearse and limo parking for said funerals in front. There's also a handicap spot in front of our church that will be removed due to your plan between Winslow and Morrison Ave, removing that parking. Another concern that we have as our school is that our parking lot is one of the closest to Davis Square that is frequently used by people picking up from the Davis Square T-stop. Cars zoom in there regularly, unmonitored. Speeding, we've had 2 instances where I've had to yell for parents to be pushed out of the way of cars threatening to hurt their children from people zooming through to pick up people from the train. My concern with removing the already limited parking spots we have on College Avenue for transportation, parking, or people picking up people from Davis Square is that the cars will continue coming through our parking lot, harming our children, harming our church members, and that this really, I understand the whole sustainability, climate control, I get it, I'm on board, but it seems a little bit of too fast of a decision to be made and without much concern for the businesses, residents, children, honestly, in our area. And as Jack Connolly had mentioned before, neither our church nor the school were notified of these changes or aware of these meetings previously that were had. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Fernanda M. Following Fernanda, we have hala Jadala.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Fernanda?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Perfect. Hi, I'm Fernanda. I also work at Apartment Rental Experts, and to kind of add on to what everyone is saying, we sit here all day long. I work every single day of the week, Monday, Sunday, every single day. We have windows for walls. I literally stare out at the traffic all day long. Taking away parking won't make the streets safer. The driving will still continue to be the driving that it is currently. We can't stop people from driving recklessly other than, adding cops or adding speed bumps, but taking away parking is only going to make it more dangerous. We have offices in Porter, Central, and Davis Square. I witnessed it in Central Square where they took away the parking on one side, and it's much more dangerous. People illegally park, people go onto the bike lanes where bikers are riding their bikes, almost hitting them. We have restaurants all over Davis Square. We have Uber Eats, we have regular Uber, we have people doing their jobs here where if there's no parking here, they don't care. They're going to illegally park on the street really quickly, right? Run into the restaurant, get the food, leave, hit whoever. They don't care. They're doing their jobs. Taking away parking isn't going to make it safer. And I think that's the point that we're missing here. Residents who live on any of these off streets, they pay a premium to live there. They get a permit from the city. And now they're also going to have to pay to park their cars on the street all day long up until 8 p.m. I don't understand where the logic is coming in from with removing the parking. Add the speed bumps, bring more cops in. There's a cop that's always up College Ave near Tufts University who stops anyone who goes over 30 miles per hour and gives them a warning or a ticket, and no one does it anymore. There are other ways to solve this issue other than taking away parking from businesses that need it.
Thank you, Fernanda. 2 minutes is up. Would you please wrap up your comments?
Yeah, I just think that, this could be a huge mistake for the area. People drive here all the time and the businesses will be significantly hurt. So I think you guys really need to reconsider.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Thank you.
Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes. Next we have Hala Jadala. Following Hala is Stephanie Galetzi.
Thank you. Would you please unmute hala?
They should be unmuted. Are you able to?
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Hala Jadala. I live at 66 Hall Ave. You moved the bus stop from the bottom of Hall Ave to between Kidder and Francesca with that ugly thing in the middle. And I mean, I almost hit it a couple of times because when I first saw it, it's just, and then taking away parking means that the Haitian church down the street is going to park on my street even more. And as it is right now, there's a premium on the parking spots. Somerville has taken away a lot of parking spaces and it's hard to get around. I'm not healthy. I can't walk. My mother's not healthy. In her neighborhood in West in Winter Hill, I have trouble parking almost 60% of the time I go to visit her, and I'm her caretaker. And if you take away those spots in Davis Square, it's just going to mean that the Haitian church is going to park up on our side streets. So if the people who don't have permanent parking, like driveways, who live on the streets, are not going to be able to park on Sundays, they're not going to be able to go out at all on Sundays if they want to go. If they want to go for breakfast or something, or meet their friends. And that bus stop is not going to be used because the one that used to be on the end of Hall Ave was barely used. And I've lived here 18 years and I've lived in Somerville for over 50 years. And I know that bus stop is barely used, if once a month. Thank you.
Thank you, Hala. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Stephanie Gillespie, and then after that, we don't have any hands raised.
Okay, would you please unmute Stephanie?
Hi, thank you. I'm Stephanie. I'm a commissioner for the Somerville Commission for Women and also a member of the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets. I'm speaking for myself. I'm a resident of Morrison Ave off of College, and I attended all 3 meetings of the Holland and College Ave project. Like people before me, I am extremely concerned about safety. A driver hit and killed Leah Zellman on this corridor while she crossed a crosswalk on Kidder just over a year ago. That should not have happened, and we need to do everything to make sure that it doesn't happen again. The changes on College Ave are necessary to improve safety in this corridor, and I think that they're the result of a huge amount of work that the Mobility Department has put in and has explained really well throughout all of their presentations, and I'm a big fan of it. After Leah Zellman died, I started an email list for my neighborhood with anybody I could find who was interested in this topic to talk about the safety and dangers in our neighborhood from cars. In the end, roads need to serve everybody in our community, and devoting so much space to parking is counter to the needs of the neighbors who'd like to be able to walk around this area without fearing for their lives in crosswalks. I walk here with my kids. I go to all these businesses. I'm a neighbor. These changes make these spaces more accessible to me. This is incredibly valuable for me to just get around my own neighborhood. And though some parking has been reduced, there is still a lot of parking in Davis Square. I see this project as doing a better job of allocating space. Right now, it's almost entirely devoted to cars. Reallocating some of that space to other uses recognizes the other types of modes that neighbors and community members are using. So I really like this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers? Oh,
yes,
we have to.
We do. We have some more hands raised now. Next, we have Lee Auspitz. Following Lee, we have Dr. Muhab Rizkala.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Lee? Lee, we can't hear you. Could you try speaking?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Lee Auspitz. I live at 17 Chapel Street, right off College Avenue. I've been there for 47 years. The Mobility Division has many capable people, but their sense of timing is very poor. There was a bump out they put on Cedar Street, which wasn't a bad idea, but it was right before Cedar Street became a detour street and cars went bumping against the bump outs. This is the worst possible time to be fiddling around with just a few spaces that are essential to a few businesses on College Avenue. Businesses are closing all through Davis Square, and the pandemic is not over, and there's no reason not to defer. In fact, there are two strong reasons to defer. One is that there's a comprehensive bicycle trail study that is being done, and there's a comprehensive parking study that is being done. I would also remind you that the first so-called safety measure, the bump out for the bus stop at Francesca, which I praised. I didn't praise the bump out, I praised the consolidation. The bump out puts an end to any possibility of a continuous bike path from going out of Davis Square. And the bus itself will jut into the opposing lane so that a bicyclist either can go on the sidewalk or swerve into the opposite lane. I've put some of these thoughts into a longish memo to you, and I hope you'll read it carefully. I see no reason not to defer this decision until we have more information and more facts available. Last point, the point that 25% of people, only 25% of people go by car. Well, that's the margin of bankruptcy for most small businesses. In fact, 10%.
Lee, the 2 minutes is up. Could you wrap up your comments, please?
Well, okay, I'll cut off.
Thank you, Lee. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Dr. Muhab Rizkala, and following Dr. Muhab, we have Stephen.
Would you please unmute Muhab?
Yes, do you hear me?
We can.
Great. Well, thank you and good evening. I'm glad I'm coming on the heels of Lee Auspitz's comments because I think he's on point. Timing is everything. I have to tell you, I love your plan, but I totally disagree with it at the same time. And the reason is largely because of the timing and because it's not built around an infrastructure that is supporting all of the values of our society. The two values right now that are at odds are safety and business health. Safety is critical, no question about it. Business health is also critical. Let's keep in mind, Davis Square is a destination, and it's a destination largely because of those businesses. I've already heard businesses speaking like apartment rental experts, and I represent multiple businesses myself. I represent LaCourte Realty, LaCourte Holdings, the Braces Place, T-Station Dental Group, and I'm the chairman of multiple healthcare advocacy groups, all of which bring about 130 staff members into Davis Square every day. Those staff members are customers of these businesses. And if those staff members you think are coming on bike, none of them are. And if you think my patients or clients are coming on bike, none of them are. Same is true for our apartment rental experts. Same is true for the insurance companies. So as you're evaluating this as a traffic board, you have a hard task ahead of you because you're also evaluating an economic impact. The fact is that you don't have the data, in my view, to evaluate this economic impact because, as John Solari presented earlier, the data analysis that was conducted earlier by the city is actually quite incomplete and is in polar disagreement with the data analysis that the businesses produced and presented to the city. All that to say, we have to consider the impact on businesses. Let's protect the businesses. Let's wait until more data is available and make sure our values are all in balance. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers' names?
Yes, next we have Stephen. Following Stephen, we have Matt C.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Stephen?
Hi, this is Stephen Mackey. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Stephen Mackey at the Somerville Chamber of Commerce, 2 Alpine Street. We have a lot of outstanding people involved in this issue on all sides. I think we have to realize that the system that we're dealing with is kind of hurting us all. If you take a look at the Traffic Commission, it's a product of a 1978 Home Rule petition. It did not anticipate anything here. It didn't anticipate about making complete streets. It didn't anticipate the level of transparency that the public would want. What we have is 5 people, 4 of whom get public paychecks, 3 of whom are in the administration, who are making decisions. Their meetings usually take less than 30 minutes. Their public they never had. We have public hearings by the council, the city council, public hearings by ZBA, planning board. There was no public hearing yet. There were some public meetings that had staff people as intermediaries. There was no direct contact, as there is right now, between the individual and the decision makers, the 3 of you. There was none of that with the Traffic Commission publicly. It was only at the courtesy of the chair at the July 15th meeting that the people who happened to be there got to speak. And I think one of you happened to be there and spoke in favor of the project, but there was no public hearing. So that brings us to look at the process of the Traffic Commission. It's embarrassing. And if you support it, I believe it may embarrass you too. So we should step back, take more written testimony, and really consider what Somerville and the bike movement and everything else, all the progress we want to make, whether we're going to look half as intelligent as I think you are.
Steve, the 2 minutes is up. Could you please wrap up your comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Kate, would you please read the next 2 commenters?
Yes, next we have Matt C. Following Matt, we have Lily Link.
Okay, would you please unmute Matt C?
Hi, my name is Matthew Carlson. I live at 205 Holland Street. I'm just representing myself. I just want to comment and say, you know, a lot of people are talking about parking needs, and you know, this is the densest city in Massachusetts. We're not talking about, this is not a suburb. There's you know, we should be prioritizing the way people move in cities, which, you know, is kind of foreign to a lot of people in the United States, but people move on their feet, by bike, by public transportation. That's how people move in cities. So a lot of these people driving into Davis are not representative of Somerville, and specifically Davis Square residents. Davis Square residents are dominated by Tufts students who are you know, demographically without cars usually. It's not safe for those people. And you know, you talk about taking away parking, like Davis Square is located in a mall somewhere. It's a busy spot because there's an MBTA station there. There's a lot of buses that go there, and there's a lot of people who bike. That's why Davis Square is busy. It's not because people are coming into the apartment rental office. You know, I walk by the apartment rental office every day, and I hardly ever see more than 3 people in there. And if the apartment rental office wants parking spots, use one of the, you know, there's a huge parking lot behind you that I'm sure they would be happy to sell you some spots to. That's always empty. I don't understand why your rights to store your private property are higher than my right to safe travel on streets that, you know, I pay tax dollars for. It's crazy. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Lily Link. Following Lily, the name as displayed is PJUPT.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Lily?
Hi, thank you so much for giving me the chance to speak tonight. I want to thank Stephanie for bringing us back to what this is ultimately about, which is the value of human life. Leah Zalman was a Somerville resident. She was a mother, she was a daughter, a wife, a doctor who served the immigrant population that is so often underserved by our medical system. And ultimately, she was a human being who died a horrific and unnecessary death. And on a personal note, a dear friend of mine actually was with her in the moment after the accident and held her as she died in her arms. That is something I do not want anyone in this city to ever have to experience ever again. And for me, ultimately, that is what this is about, is the value of human life and my care for all of my neighbors who live in Somerville, regardless of how they get around. I hear a lot of frustration from people tonight, and I understand that the transition from a car-centric system to one that is respectful and considerate of everyone and however they might get around is going to be difficult. It will come with sacrifice. It will come with uncomfortable stumbles and adjustments. That is what systemic change requires, but we are already so many decades behind where we need to be in order to reach our climate change goals, our traffic safety goals, and the goals of how we think of ourselves as a city. There is not another second to waste. The last thing I want to say is that I just want to completely reject the logic of pitting safety against business. I think that is completely unfounded. It's a fear-based tactic that I frankly just refuse to participate in that paradigm. I am a resident. I support many, many businesses in Davis Square. I get there exclusively on foot or by bus, and I will continue doing that for as long as I'm alive. Thank you.
Lily, for the record, could you state your address, please, or your street?
Thank you for the reminder. My name is Lily Link. I live at 12 Maple Avenue.
Thank you, Lily. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, the next person is PJUPT. Following them is David Rizzuti.
Thank you. Would you please unmute PJUPT?
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Paul Upton, UPTON. I'm a former resident at 7 Cottage Avenue for 47 years, currently living outside the city. I was a retired deputy chief of police in Somerville. I was a member of the Traffic Commission for several years, and I was also a member of the Davis Square Task Force when Davis Square was a ghost town, and Somerville residents were begging for business to come to Davis Square. I'm opposed to the changes proposed for College Avenue as it appears right now. I frequent Davis Square multiple times a week. I've been doing that ever since I moved out of the city to Medford. College Avenue is a crosstown street. There are some traffic challenges there, and I know the police have addressed that over the years. But when I was on the Traffic Commission, there were 274 parking spaces in Davis Square. That's now reduced because of the outdoor dining. But along in Davis Square and along College Avenue, there are doctor's offices, dentists, 5 churches, to my memory. There are businesses in Davis Square, restaurants in the Somerville Theater, which at nighttime brings in a huge numbers of people. With the 24/7 traffic changes, there are very few bicycles that are traveling into Davis Square during the evening hours on several months of the year. Basically, the bicycle traffic is pretty much 8 months out of the year, with some year-round riders. My concern is that with the current ongoing traffic comprehensive study, that should include a bicycle traffic count, just like we always did with traffic counts when affecting speed and enforcement in certain areas. I think that traffic count, that comprehensive study should include a bicycle traffic count also, because these proposed changes are going to have a detrimental effect on the life of Davis Square. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have David Rizzuti. Following David, we have Alex Frieden.
Okay, would you please unmute David?
Hi, this is David, and I live at number 26 Brastow Avenue in Somerville. I've lived here with my wife for the last 25 years or more at this location. And prior to that, I became a resident in and around Davis Square in, say, 1985. And wanted to agree with the previous speaker, the police commissioner, and also ask that the board consider very closely the testimony from Counselor Jack Connolly, who lives right on College Avenue. I feel that the current fashion of making it harder to drive in Somerville is a disgrace. I think that the way Davis Square is working right now is abysmal. It was much more beautiful when the city devoted more time and energy into making the roads navigable rather than making it more difficult for the residents who primarily commute in and around Boston in order to earn their livings to get around Somerville. Highland Avenue is just one giant pothole as far as I can tell. And our money, our very high tax dollars, are being spent on making it more difficult to get around the streets of Somerville. And that is creating so much ire amongst residents, especially the people that have lived here and devoted their careers and their lives to Somerville to make it the successful and beautiful place that it is today. So I would urge the commission to please consider the fact that it may be wonderful to think about bicycles all of a sudden turning Somerville into some form of Holland or some place like that that's a European city that bicycles are the main thing, but we're a commuter, hardworking, working class town, and people drive because it's cold here and it's snow.
Your 2 minutes are up. Would you please wrap up your comments?
And you know, please listen to Jack and some of the other people that have been here a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Alex Frieden. Following Alex, we have John Amaro.
Okay, would you please unmute Alex?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. I want to, my name is Alex Frieden. I live at 4 Lake Street in Somerville, and I want to definitely endorse what this project and the direction the Traffic Commission has taken in making this project. I actually was against the current version of this project, as I wanted to see a more aggressive, more multimodal College Ave. But you know, this is a vast improvement over what is there today. I've taken College Ave as I have family on George Street in Medford, and this is the fastest way to get there from Davis Square. A quick reminder that the resident participation in the Summer Vision actually does advocate for and asks for less car travel and increased trips by other modes. There's no city policy to preserve parking spots. And College represents a major way to traverse between Davis and Powder House with its major improvements recently, and Davis and Tufts, where many students are traveling between the two. So this is absolutely essential, and there's no reason that we shouldn't make a better way for travel around Somerville and build out our network of safe, faster bus routes and safer bike routes for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have John Amaro. Following John, we have Olivia Biddle.
Okay, thank you. Would you please unmute John?
Hi there. I've enjoyed listening to everyone. I'm John Amaro. I'll use 90 College Avenue as a vantage point, halfway between Davis and Powder House. So like the guys down at Davis Square with the big windows, I have 42 years of experience with the traffic on College Ave of all kinds, and I've written a fairly extensive document that I hope you take a look at. As an engineer, I don't hear any quality control involved in this from the flawed data that seems to have given you license to go ahead with the things you've done on College Ave to the feedback. I believe that the things that have been done so far, like the bump out, the lights, the islands, and the rotary, actually are making things worse in a number of separate ways. I think there are some good ideas in all these, but they're flawed because their designs aren't working. So I would take issue with people who think that these token gestures are doing good. I don't think they are doing good, and I think they have flaws on every level. So quality control is needed, and engineers need to think about this. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, John. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Olivia Biddle. Following Olivia, we have Greg Mara.
Okay, would you please unmute Olivia?
Hi, my name's Olivia. I work at Apartment Rental Experts in Davis Square. My statement's going to be a little bit shorter, but I basically just wanted to talk about, how we contribute to the community by housing people. We're in and out of the office every day, 7 days a week, most of the time. A lot of us, there's about 6 or 7 of us in the office, and it's already extremely difficult to find parking as much as we're coming in and out of the office, going on showings, helping out our community, getting people living arrangements is already very difficult for us to find parking. A lot of us don't have the option of going on side streets where there's the permit parking. And I know if we do have to do that and it is metered parking, it's going to push out a lot of the residents in the area who do have cars. So I think overall, there's other ways to implement like biking safety to the people in the community rather than just taking away all the parking and making it exclusively, bike lanes. There are other ways to educate people on how to drive safely, bike safely, etc. So this really does impact us greatly. I live in Revere, so, coming all the way to Somerville, not being able to park anywhere is already very frustrating on a daily basis. And I think that this is just going to make it a lot harder on a lot of us who do positively impact the community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Olivia. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Next, we have Greg Mara, and at this time, we don't have any other hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Would you please unmute Greg?
Hi, thank you. I'm Greg. I used to live on Foskett Street near Davis and now live on Atherton Street closer to Porter. While I lived in the area, I would regularly bike my daughter on College to parks. It's a tricky street to be on with a bike. Cars are often going much faster than the speed limit. So I think the plan is a good direction. Wish the city was going further, but really glad to see these upgrades. So thanks for the planning going into this.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Kate, are there any more people with their hands raised?
At this time, I don't see any other hands raised. Should I reiterate the Zoom instructions just to ensure that everyone knows?
That would be great, thank you.
Okay. Just gonna bring them up on the screen. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, can you see the instructions on the screen?
We can.
Okay, I'm going to read through them for everyone. So to participate in giving public testimony, you can select the raise hand function. You can either find this by clicking on the reactions button in your toolbar, and a window will pop out with a raise hand button. In some Zoom versions, you might find this directly on your toolbar or through your participants window. We will call on you when it is your turn and unmute your microphone, and we will share the queue of raised hands so that everyone in the Zoom session has an idea of who is up next. If you are joining by phone today, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties at any time, please reach out to me, Kate White, by email at kwhite@somervillema.gov or by phone at 617-366-7293.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Is there anyone else who has not had a chance to speak and would like to? If you have not yet spoken and you would like to, please raise your hand.
I do not see any new people with hands raised.
Okay. If anyone would like to speak again, If you would like to speak again, the time limit is going to be 2 minutes again. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak again. Kate, do we have anyone who would like to speak again?
Yes, we have John Amaro.
Okay, would you please unmute John?
I don't know how that happened.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we do have some more people who are raising their hands again.
Okay.
Next, we have Kim.
Okay, would you please unmute Kim? Kim, if you would like to speak again, would you please speak?
Hi, I just wanted to bring up the other point of winters in Somerville and how plows will affect these bike lanes or such, as like in Powder House Rotary right now. I've noticed, I've seen all of the poles that are up. I'm just wondering how a plow is going to make it through that or not destroy those. Just putting my 2 cents in there about the heavy winters that we have here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Kate, would you please announce our next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Muhab. Following Muhab, we have Lily.
Okay, would you please unmute Muhab? Muhab, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Your microphone is unmuted. You're not hearing anything.
Do you hear me?
Oh, yes, now we can hear you.
We can.
So sorry about that. I wanted to propose actually some definite concepts. Okay, so just rather than being characterizing my view, I want to just be specific. I think that the board should consider some middle ground, perhaps considering that Davis Square is a destination and not just a pass through. The idea of stopping the bike lane short of where you have it right now. You know, again, I originally said I love this plan and concept. I just have problems with it in terms of its timing and the inability for businesses to get out of the way of the wrecking ball that it represents right now. Given time, we can adjust to things, but the timing is not quite right. So what if we proposed the idea of protecting the existing parking all the way to Morrison Ave on College Ave, and then at the very least, perhaps just to Park Ave, so that the businesses, downstream into Davis Square from Park Ave and downstream into Davis Square from Morrison still have those spots. What this accomplishes is it gets us way down the hill, okay, so that there are a lot of safety measures that have been accomplished at the same time where the biggest impacts on businesses are really at that entrance to Davis Square. Those areas being protected, I think, would actually establish some level of balance. And I thank you for that time.
Thank you, Muhab. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, and would you like me to read the next? We have some repeats and we have some new. Would you like to do the new or the repeats?
How many do we have in total?
At this time, we have 4.
Okay, let's go through in the order that hands were raised.
Okay. Next, we have Lily.
Okay, would you please unmute Lily?
Hi there, sorry for the confusion. This is actually Seth Hurwitz again. Lily and I are sharing a computer right now. But yeah, this is Seth Hurwitz at 12 Maple Avenue. There are a few points that I wanted to respond to, things that have been mentioned by previous speakers. The first is the matter of safety and enforcement. When it comes to making sure that motorists drive at a safe speed and follow the rules, police does not inherently mean safety. Police presence does not mean that motorists will obey the laws, and it does not mean that there will not be car crashes. Instead, building the infrastructure so that it's safe will help enhance safety features in the area. So making it so that cars cannot drive as fast and dedicating spaces to cyclists and buses and pedestrians, that will enhance safety, not necessarily police presence. In addition, the lively nature of Davis Square does not owe itself to the presence of cars and the ease of parking in the area. The history of Davis Square is one that's marked by the arrival of the Red Line. And that's what led to Davis Square being the bustling business center that it is, not cars. And that's seen throughout the globe in modern cities in other countries as well. Transit is what makes for a strong neighborhood. Additionally, what other speakers have said about what will happen if parking is lost has to do with fear that isn't founded by data. There is no guarantee that these businesses will shrivel and die if parking is removed. It simply is not available, but there is data that suggests that making areas more accessible by transit, bike, and walking does make them stronger. And finally, I just want to point out that all the speakers today who have spoken about this plan, who are in support of it, have argued for benefits for the community and for safety and for human life. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Stephen. Following Stephen, we have Becca Miller.
Thank you. Would you unmute Stephen, please?
Hi, Stephen Mackey again from the Somerville Chamber. We certainly support safety and human life.
Stephen, you're very hard to hear. Could you speak closer to your microphone?
Okay.
Sorry, Kate, could you restart the clock?
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Stephen.
We certainly support safety and human life. I don't think asking for a public hearing and a parking study means we don't. The Traffic Commission, there were public meetings that the Mobility Division did with members of the community. The Traffic Commission wasn't there. It wasn't before the Traffic Commission. They relied on the summary that we saw here tonight that Mr. Schreiber presented. And I'd remind you, and I put it up on the screen if we were invited to do so, Mr. Schreiber presented a summary of public input. The word business, economy, jobs wasn't mentioned in the summary of public input. Worship, seniors, people with disability weren't mentioned in the summary of public input. He presented a slide on monitoring and evaluation. None of those things were mentioned as to be tracked. What you have is you have a mobility division that's been given a directive, and that's all well and good, okay? They run it through a traffic commission that has no deliberative history. You can go back and look at the video. There's no discussion. They didn't go to the meetings. They didn't discuss this. They just cast the votes. You didn't have a public hearing on this matter. You need to send it back for a public hearing. And you'll have the advantage of the new administration and the parking study. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Yes, next we have Becca Miller. Following Becca, we have John Solari.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Becca?
Hey, can you hear me? Cool. Well, thank you for everyone for doing all of the work that you do. I really appreciate the work that's gone into this plan. I live at 14 Elmwood Street, which is off of Holland, and I mainly get around by foot and bike around Davis Square pretty much every day. So I just want to second what Seth said earlier. I definitely support this plan. And I just kind of want to refute what Dr. Muhabras Kala said. He owns LaCourte Realty and has many parking spaces off of College Ave at the properties that he owns on side streets, such as Kenwood and the parking lot behind the Braces place. And I think we really need to make sure that we're moving forward with Summer Vision, with making sure that our community is able to serve folks that are not getting around on car, and that we actually serve folks as a city that supports folks getting around on bike and foot. Just wanted to make sure that we're trying to move forward with this. There are ways to prioritize accessibility while removing parking spaces. I think that you all are really thoughtful folks, and I would just really love to see this move forward. So just wanted to say that briefly, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Becca. Kate, would you please read the next two speakers?
Next, we have John Solari, and at this time, that's the only next raised hand.
Okay, would you please unmute John?
Hi, thanks again, guys. So I just wanted to point out that most of these people that are speaking against this project aren't really speaking against it. We are just asking for more time so you guys can make an informed decision. Wait until the parking study is done, get actual community involvement. And I also like to point out that none of us are against public safety. We understand that there was a tragedy and that something needs to be done, but that also isn't relevant to the removal of parking in the heart of Davis Square. Our building at 20 College Ave depends on the parking in front of it. We have 2 takeout restaurants, a dry cleaner, and then apartment rental experts and a coffee shop. If you remove all the parking, which this plan is going to do, in front of that business, those businesses, they're going to fail. And I just think it's so irresponsible coming out of COVID to do something like this. I really ask that you guys take a little more time. Brad Rawson said that removing the parking is just a matter of painting different lines. So let's wait to paint those lines until June, when we have the data that would support or not support that. And that's all we're asking. And I really hope you guys will take that extra time to do that. Thank you again.
Thank you, John. Kate, would you please read our next 2 speakers?
The next speaker listed, the name is displayed JM. Following JM is Jack Connolly.
Okay, would you please unmute JM?
Hello, my name's John Mark Imbrescia. I live at 51 Ossipee Road, so right between Powder House and Broadway on Packard Avenue. So I am in and out of Davis, several times every day. I bike, I walk, and my family has 2 cars. And we use all 3 forms to get into and out of Davis. And I just want to reiterate the support that my family has for this project. I walk our dog down Holland and up College all the time. And College has been historically very scary. Powder House is very scary. Cars drive very fast. More than once, I have been overtaken in my vehicle on Powder House because I was driving the speed limit, and people are used to driving much faster. Everything that we do as a community to increase safety on these roads is important. I know that some of the business owners are worried about losing parking, but we need to improve our road safety. We need to make it safer for me to bike with my family to Davis, so we don't have to take our car anymore, and that frees up parking spots that we wouldn't otherwise be using, because right now it's unsafe. So I just want to thank everybody who's worked on this project. The traffic calming measures on College are fantastic. Ways to slow down cars really, really help. I think the Powder House rotary design has been really good. I'm looking forward to Powder House getting a protected bike lane. And I think the bike lane that went in slowed cars down, and that helps. It's not as good as the protected one, but hopefully someday soon. But I want to thank everybody, and I really want to reiterate the support that people in this community, real community members, have for this project.
Thank you. So I see we have a number of repeat speakers. I would just ask, if you've already spoken, please try to make your comments additive and not repetitive. We have a couple of more first-time speakers, so we'll continue with the order. So Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Jack Connolly. Following Jack, we have PJ Upton.
Okay, would you please unmute Jack?
Thank you. Just wanted to call to your attention that the Davis Square of the 1984 T opening was done with a lot of input from businesses, neighbors, residents, city officials over a long period of time. We spent over 2 decades working on plans. Tonight's meeting is certainly called for something similar to involve business, residents, city officials, and planners to come up with an equitable solution to the safety, security, and economic survivability of some of the small businesses that, quite frankly, I think are being discriminated against, particularly the people that travel to Champa Manor to provide PT, respiratory, nursing services, etc. You're discriminating against the opportunity for elderly people who we work very hard to put in that building. 100 and some odd people of low income live in that building and enjoy Davis Square because of all the efforts of the Davis Square Task Force. Perhaps you consider reviving something like that in order to have a meeting to discuss in detail some of these very good suggestions. Tonight shows the perfect reason why you should hit the pause button and not make a decision on this until we can reconvene with more data that is specific to traffic and counting measures. And let's look at the data. We got the middle of winter. There's not going to be a lot of biking going to be going on right now. Let's make sure we look at this for a long-term effort. Plenty of people willing to participate based on tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Jack. Kate, would you please read the next two comments?
Yes. Next, we have PJ Upton. Following PJ, we have John Baptiste.
Okay. Would you please unmute PJ?
Yeah, good evening, and thank you very much to the board for allowing me to speak one more time. I had a couple of points I didn't get to make in my 2 minutes. I just wanted to say, based on my experience when I ran the traffic unit at the Somerville Police for several years, the traffic that you're looking to mitigate is actually not going to disappear. It's going to relocate. So I just want you to keep in mind that this if this plan is implemented as it is, it will relocate some of that traffic onto Wallace, Irving, and Simpson and Willow Avenue. So those residents are going to will be impacted. They may not realize it right now, but that will happen. Also, when you have wide open bus lanes, one of the problems that's going to occur is going to increase the speed of buses. I recall riding up a bus on College Avenue one time going 51 miles an hour. So you have to understand that when you do create these dedicated lanes, you will be increasing the speed for both bicycles and buses, because they're riding unopposed, unobstructed, and they're being a little less careful. And the last thing I want to mention to you is that, especially for elderly residents, mostly of Somerville, the elderly residents are not physically able to ride bikes, and they do have to come to Davis Square and for either doctor's visits or whatever. So you may need to consider that this plan as written is going to have a negative impact on the elderly residents. Lastly, do you have a plan for weddings, funerals, and religious events in the 5 churches on College Avenue? That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have John Baptiste. Following Al, we have Courtney Morgan Pollock.
Thanks. Would you please unmute Al?
Hello, this is Al. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Again, I spoke earlier. And I just wanted to build on what the last gentleman was saying. And my problem is not so much with the bikes or the bike lanes, but I think that the real issue with Davis Square, I've worked here for 20 years. The real issue, I believe, is that it's a cramped, small space, and the popularity of Davis definitely outgrew the structure. And so, to add a bike lane, and it makes it more congested, and I think it makes it more dangerous. And I can say this as God is my witness, and I've seen people drive on Davis Square like it was, the Grand Prix. But I've also seen people on bikes who do the exact same thing. And so to me, it's kind of like a war between the bikes and the cars, which it really shouldn't be. But the people who are driving need to tone it down a lot. And a lot of the people on the bicycles drive extremely recklessly. And I think that the problem is that it's cramped. And so one idea is maybe to reroute either the bikes or the cars, but to try and, it's already cramped, and now we have a bike lane it's more cramped, it's more crowded, and as he said, the bikers can be reckless, and so the people who are driving can also be reckless. And maybe you reroute some of the bikes, or you reroute the cars and have them go on an alternative path. But you know, trying to make like that little area in Davis, you know, safer by adding more lanes and giving more the right of way to more people, it's already kind of a cluster, you know what? And so I think you're making it more clustered. And also, like they said about the snow, I mean, good luck with the Rotary. I think that it's a great idea. It's a great concept, but I'm just not so sure how it plays out in the snow. And it's more of an obstacle course. And I think you're probably going to see an uptick in accidents because it's just more people being reckless, sharing a smaller
your
space.
2 minutes is up. Could you wrap up your comments?
I'm all set. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Kate, could you read our next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Courtney Morgan Pollock. Following Courtney, we have Petru Sofio.
Great. Could you unmute Courtney, please?
Hello? Hello? Okay.
Hi, Courtney. We can hear you.
Hi, sorry. This is Derek Key. I'm using Courtney's computer. We live at 85 Chandler Street, which is just parallel to College Ave near Davis Square between Davis and Powder House. I just wanted to mention 2 things. One is that, you know, we are both regular pedestrians and drivers through Davis. One thing that I wanted to mention was about police enforcement. I regularly see people double parked around College Ave and in Davis Square, which obstructs traffic and also obstructs our view of pedestrians as they're driving through. I think that makes things a lot less safe for pedestrians and drivers. I also see people running a particular red light on multiple occasions, the one at the end of College, just before Davis. I've seen on multiple occasions people just running right through that red light. And I'm hoping that part of a plan could also improve the police presence and traffic enforcement in that area. The second thing is that it's concerning to me that to hear that we have very limited and somewhat unreliable information about some of these measures that are being taken. I was particularly concerned to hear from the engineer that some of the measures that are being taken might actually reduce the safety on College Ave near Davis Square. So I hope that once we have a plan in place, or once a new plan is proposed, hopefully, that there's a substantial amount of evidence in whatever report comes out that these measures will actually improve safety and not just make it look like safety is being improved, while not actually fixing the problems or maybe even making them worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Yes, next we have Petru. Following that, we have Lee Ospitz.
Great. Would you please unmute Petru?
Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm an Arlington resident, but I frequent Somerville for my job and also to visit businesses and friends. But unfortunately, because I'm not permitted to drive yet because of my age, it is very hard for me to visit Davis Square because College Avenue is so unfriendly to bicyclists. I will actually choose to walk my bicycle on the sidewalk instead because it is so dangerous on the street because it's so narrow. So I'm in strong support of these plans to make it a lot safer with the sharrows, the speed bumps, and the northbound bicycle lane. Furthermore, I'm also in support of the bus enhancements because buses carry so many more people than single occupancy cars. They deserve priority over cars. And I think that this really follows the Vision Zero and Somerville's climate plan. Lastly, I wanted to complain about the College Avenue and Morrison Avenue traffic signal. I've experienced a lot of close calls here because drivers are not expecting the flashing yellow signal to turn red. So I request that the signal be reevaluated because it is dangerous. If we want more people to visit businesses in Somerville, we need to make it safe and free for everybody to get there. So I think that adding bike lanes and making bicycle-friendly connections would really help the businesses. And I think it's unfair that streets like College and other streets don't have bicycle lanes because it makes it unsafe for me to travel on those streets. Thank you very much. I'm in support of this plan.
Thank you, Petru. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers?
Next, we have Lee Ospitz. Following Lee, we have Matt C.
Thank you. Would you please unmute Lee? Lee, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Good. Thank you for letting me speak the second time. I just wanted to point out that the current plan actually has recipes for fatalities. The first area which is an accident waiting to happen, a bicycle accident waiting to happen, is at the new bump out, which will end any bicycle lane that is created. A second place for fatality is at the turn into College Avenue from Highland. The fact that the intention is to increase safety doesn't mean that that is the result. Let me give you an example. The horrible fatality that occurred on Kidder was perfectly predictable when Morrison Avenue was closed to through traffic, which greatly increased the use of Kidder as a cross street. I think a more comprehensive view based on actual data and actual flows is really what is needed. I should also mention that the third area that will be a fatality spot is the proposed left bicycle turn into Park Street using a contraflow concept. I'm all for contraflow concepts, but this one is very poorly designed. So having the right intention does not necessarily give us the right result.
Thank you, Lee. Kate, are there any other speakers with their hands raised?
I do not see any at this time. Oh, one just popped up.
Okay, would you please read the speaker's name?
Yes, their name is Hala Jadala.
Okay, would you please unmute Hala?
Thank you for letting me speak again. I've noticed a change in the traffic pattern. So pre-COVID and pre-Broadway Bridge closing, we had traffic. We didn't have so much traffic when the bridge was closed. And then we had COVID, and then we had barely no traffic. And I was still going to work 3 or 4 days a week and then back to full time. Now, the traffic is even worse. So you need to do another study again because you need to see what the traffic is in the whole Davis Square, Ball Square area, because the traffic is a lot more. I leave my house at 7:30 and I can make it to Chelsea by 8 o'clock. But now I have to leave a little bit earlier because now at the bottom of Broadway Bridge, just at Boston Ave, it gets crowded now. And I think we just need to take our time and make sure that everybody is in agreement. We need to put that back to Davis Square Task Force, and we need to make sure that when people are coming in and doing things in this city, they come to the community first, so we don't have to go through things like this with you guys. They come to you with a final project and say, this is what the city wants. This is what your residents want. And that was really good back then, and I was part of that. And I haven't seen that too much lately. I just hope you make good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hala. Kate, would you please read the next 2 speakers, if there are 2?
We have one person next. Their name is Marin.
Okay, great. Would you please unmute Marin?
Hi, I'm Marin Chu, 17 Kidder Avenue. I can see the intersection where Leah Zalman died from my living room window, and I've been watching traffic at this intersection for 25 years. Leah didn't die because of bike lanes or parking or bus stops. She died because traffic backs up from Davis Square all the way down College Avenue, and cars make a split-second decision to take a shortcut so they don't have to wait in that traffic. None of these changes are going to fix that problem. Another death will happen. It might be Kidder, it might be Morrison, but cars don't want to wait in that traffic that's backed up through Davis, and they take shortcuts. Sit outside of the library and look at the traffic. Cars drive in the incoming lane so they can turn left on Morrison instead of waiting in the traffic. I'm not against the changes, but none of them are going to fix the problem of cars not moving through Davis efficiently. We're putting Band-Aids on a problem that needs major surgery. We've been complaining about the traffic in Davis for years. Years. We were told that it couldn't be done because of the way the lights are configured. Recently, we were told that they were going to be fixed because they got some grant to fix the lights, which before couldn't be fixed, but now they can with this grant. Stop putting Band-Aids on problems, find the root of the problem and fix it. We might not need dedicated bus lanes if the buses can move through Davis efficiently. And until we can address the root of the problem, I'm asking you to pause any more changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. Kate, do we have any more speakers?
I do not see any hands raised. Oh, we have one. Their name is Thomas Ross.
Okay, would you please unmute Thomas?
Hi, pleased to see you guys tonight. Sorry, got on a little late, but I haven't been able to listen for the past 40 minutes or so to some of the comments. Appreciate the effort that you folks have put forth in this project. But everything I've heard for the past, 40 minutes or so is sort of a resounding, you need to go back and review these plans again, present them back to the city and to the residents, because I think a lot of people are feeling like some of these changes are being thrust upon them without any public input. And I just want to sort of put that out there for you folks right now.
Thank you, Thomas. Kate, are there any more raised hands?
I do not see any hands raised.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, Kate, do we have any more raised hands?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank everyone for their comments and for taking the time tonight to come to the meeting and speak. That ends the public comment section of the meeting. And now I would ask the members of the traffic board if anybody wishes to make any comments or ask any questions. If any members want to make a motion.
Justin, can you pull back up the slide on the parking, just so that we can kind of have a visual of what we're deliberating on?
I can, just one moment.
Thanks. I will, in the meantime, make a comment that there were a lot of suggestions here that I think were great, but out of the scope of the traffic board. So we do have some city staff here that I would encourage them to kind of take some of those great suggestions. And I also wanted to address, like, I did hope that there would be more emphasis that this was an appeal. We did read it out into the description early on in the actual meeting, but I think that we definitely could do a better job in the future of publishing that more often. Okay, so can you go to one? Okay, so I heard a lot about parking removal, but it still seems like there's a lot of parking. And you said that we are netting 31 spots. So I do know that, okay, so, okay.
Is this the
Yeah.
diagram?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I have
then,
the Wilson that refers to the specific items as well.
okay, can you also do the ones on the side street specifically?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks. So these are the streets that are being, these are the spots that are being added. Okay. I mean, I will say that, like, I heard a lot of concerns about the business losing parking, but it would seem to me that giving these more parking spaces, metered parking spaces, would allow more turnover. So I do feel like this seems like a good plan that's thought about it. I noticed that somebody in the write-in comments talked about how there are long-term parkers, which are from not in the area, that would cause businesses to not be able to have people come over and use their business during business hours. So again, I feel like these meters do satisfy that requirement. I did a bike count at College Ave and Winter Street earlier this year, just to kind of familiarize myself with that area. And I did notice that the 7-Eleven parking lot seemed pretty empty. And I think I heard over at Mass Ave, one of the restaurants organized some sort of like parking share with a nearby daycare. I don't know, or Alex, if you know anything about that. But I feel like that could be a potential thing that the businesses can look into. Again, not something that we are qualified to speak on here as the traffic board, but I do encourage businesses, especially I believe most of the write-in were actually from the realty office that is right across from that 7-Eleven. So that might be a good option.
And I think, yeah, that I will just make the point that what none of these slides show is any off-street parking. Mm-hmm. Privately owned or any other ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a concern of mine, is that while on-street parking was thoroughly inventoried, there are off-street parking resources that have not been taken into account, which could change the picture in terms of the flexibilities that are possible. So for example, as Joan mentioned on North Mass Ave, interestingly, my spouse and I just dined at Season to Taste the week before and the week after changes were made to the curb usage there. And indeed, Bright Horizons and Seasons to Taste were able to figure out a mutually beneficial arrangement. Daycare parking typically utilized during the day, dinner-oriented restaurant in the evening. I'm noticing behind 20 College Avenue, there's a substantial off-street parking area. It may not be owned by the same property owner. Perhaps there's some off-street privately negotiated arrangements that could be possible there. I'm a little disappointed that was not part of the discussion, just to set that up. But I think that's a tally in terms of that's a tally in the this is possibly more workable than we give it credit for column in my view. Another comment I picked up relative to Kidder Avenue, someone mentioned that this project would not make any difference in terms of the safety of turning traffic there. I'm wondering if city staff can highlight any changes that are being made as part of this project at the intersection of Kidder.
Justin, I think that's an ask to you to show the slide and describe maybe.
Or the intersection improvements proposed for that corner, for that intersection there. That's the question.
Yes. And what the effects of those might be, the intended effects of those safety countermeasures.
Yes. So at the intersection of College Ave and Kidder Summit, constructing pedestrian refuge islands, which are essentially a median in the middle of the street. And as you approach the intersection from either direction in the vehicle travel lane, those vehicle travel lanes move towards the curb and create the space to build the median island in the middle of the street. So because those vehicles travel lanes are moving towards the curb, that's the reason why their parking would not be permitted in those areas. Also restricting the parking up right up to an intersection to allow for what we call daylighting, basically making sure that vehicles aren't blocking other vehicles' view of the intersection. So there's an island on sort of each side of the crosswalk there. And the intent there is to slow down people traveling through the intersection, again, because they have to move towards the curb and back. We call that a chicane. It's a horizontal shift in the roadway. In addition, for folks that are turning onto and off of Kidder, it requires you to take that turn much, much more slowly. So the vehicle that hit Leia was taking a left onto Kidder Ave, and Although we were not there, we have a strong suspicion that it was taken at a very shallow angle. When folks are trying to get in front of traffic coming in the other direction to make a left turn, they'll often make those turns ahead of the intersection. So the median island, the curbing in place in the middle of the roadway, it essentially forces vehicles to travel all the way up into the intersection before taking that left turn. So vehicles will have to travel and take lefts and rights much more slowly. And then that's definitely the intention of that design and having the median island in there. And then as a pedestrian, because there is the space, about an 8-foot island in the middle of the road, as a pedestrian refuge, you only have to cross one lane of traffic at a time. So you can cross one lane of traffic and then cross the next lane of traffic. And typically, the yielding of that is much better than when a pedestrian is standing all the way at one end of the curb. They're much closer to where vehicles are crossing their path, so they're much more visible as well. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you, Justin.
Sure.
I wanted to just respond, Joan, to a couple of things you mentioned. The first is thank you for mentioning the appeal. I will note that we did mention and read the text of the appeal at the beginning of the meeting. And then just in response, to any, off-street parking, that is, you mentioned outside our scope, that's outside the scope of this project, right? These are public roadways, public spaces, and that was the scope of this project. So I think we should be aware that we're here to weigh in on this specific issue involving public streets and roads.
So yeah, could you also go back to, I looked up where all the churches are. Can you go back to again where the parking is going to be changing on specifically where all these? So, okay, so there are some parking removals near the churches, like on College Ave itself, but are those added back on the side streets? Because that seems like a legitimate concern.
So it's a net change of fewer parking spaces on College Avenue. However, any accessible spaces are relocated, none are removed.
Okay. I mean, it kind of sounds, again, outside of this scope, it sounds like we probably need to look into adding more accessible spaces if there is an aging community there. So again, out of this scope, but that's probably something worth investigating.
Justin, if it's helpful, I can show the map of where the existing and proposed spaces were. So the one that was relocated was between Winslow and Morrison, sort of on the outbound side of the roadway. That's being relocated to the far side of Morrison Ave, just in front of the new raised crosswalk there.
Okay.
And then the net new one is the one in front of the West Branch Library. And these other ones, the sort of clusters, those are in the city parking lots in Davis Square.
Okay, great. So I know our first petition item was inadequate notice. Can you go back to the slide that talked about the notice?
Yes.
Okay. Well, this seems to contradict the petitioners. I guess it seems like we did some notice. I guess maybe, I know it's technically outside of charter even, but maybe the city could look into doing more notice in the future for these to prevent these kind of petitions.
Could I ask, Justin, is this standard notice for traffic commission projects?
Typically, the parking department requires all agenda items no later than a week and a day in advance so that they can post the agenda within a week.
Thank you.
Of the meeting. Sorry, just one more piece on the notice, just also acknowledging that after changes, if they're approved by the traffic commission, they're also noticed for 3 weeks in the newspaper.
I mean, as a young millennial, I would feel like that doesn't seem adequate and maybe we should change that, but that's that's I know that's not in the charter.
So sorry, just to be clear, the pre-meeting notice and then the post-meeting decision followed the usual protocol. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Again, the mobility doesn't staff the traffic commission, but that is correct.
I feel disappointed in reading all these and hearing even some of the comments that even though the petitioner claimed that there were deceptive wording of the regulatory proposals and incomplete missing presentation of the data, none of them took it upon them to send us that information. So it's hard for me to judge what that's about.
Justin, can you go back to the outreach slide about the design? The mobility projects. Yes, thank you. Do any of the members have other comments, more questions?
How would you say this level of outreach compares to other projects of comparable scope in the past?
I would say at the time, it probably was one of the most comprehensive ones in terms of the outreach, and that, with each project, we try to improve the amount of people that we're reaching, acknowledging that we won't necessarily reach every person. So I think it was comprehensive and in line with what would be expected for a maintenance project like this.
Is it correct?
Looks like a lot of, I mean, if this were a marketing effort, this would, I think, qualify as an omni-channel effort in terms of reaching multiple channels.
Justin, is it correct that the public meetings happened both before and after COVID protocols? So there were in-person and then virtual meetings, is that correct?
Yes, the first meeting was an in-person meeting in February of 2020. That was the only in-person meeting. It took place at the TAB building on Holland Street.
Thank you.
Where's the library on this map, or the parking map? I know that was another concern of people going to the library. Imagine libraries are mostly frequented by people who live locally.
Yeah, the library is just opposite Morrison Ave. So the proposed bus lane begins after, and we work with the library director to fine tune the regulations in front of the library.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So definitely not as all the parking removed as it seemed from the comments. Does anybody have anything else?
Does anybody have other questions or comments, or does anybody want to make a motion?
I will just comment that this is, in my mind, first and foremost, a safety project, and I think many of the public comments uphold that perspective. In my review of the geometric elements of the project, these are all well-established safety countermeasures, refuge islands, separation of modes, and additional crosswalks, as well as traffic calming engineering elements. That I think is consistent with this as a primarily safety project. And I believe the comments, particularly from the Somerville residents, those who depicted themselves as living here, and particularly those living in the neighborhood, depicted that well as well.
Okay. I guess I will make a motion if you can say. One more comment before I make the motion is I know there were some asks for delaying this project. I don't believe that is within our scope, and it does seem like this project has happened for a long time, and I mean, things change, so I'm inclined to go for some safety measures that we think will work. And, you know, if it seems like it's not working, I'm sure there will be another project to undo it or continue improving the safety, but that's, again, outside of the scope. We can either take a motion to appeal, uphold, and so I will make a motion, and I motion that the traffic board votes to, I motion that the traffic board affirms and upholds the adoption of the rules and regulations made by the traffic commission on July 15th and then ratified on November 18th regarding the College Ave Mobility Improvement Plan project.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, Kate, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Arisher.
Yes.
Alex Epstein.
Yes.
Joan Liu.
Yes.
All three votes in favor, this motion passes.
Okay. I think that concludes our only agenda item for this hearing. So with that, I think we need a motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I second.
Okay, Kate, would you take a vote, please? Roll call vote.
Yes. Arisher.
Yes.
Alex Epstein.
Yes.
Joan Liu.
Yes.
With that, the meeting or the hearing is adjourned. I want to remind everyone that an audio recording, audio video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings will be posted on the city website as soon as possible.
Thank you, everyone. We hope you have a good evening. Thank you for your time. Bye.